Good afternoon. My name is David Payne, and I have the privilege of introducing our speakers this afternoon. When you have built a business like Bob and Shelley have, Worldwide Group asks you to share from stage your knowledge and your experience. Bob and Shelley Coomer have an incredible business that spans the continent. And with this e-commerce model, they have helped hundreds of people travel the road of financial independence. So would you please all help me welcome from Spokane, Washington, Bob and Shelley Coomer.
Thank you. Thank you. We are so excited and so honored and humbled to be here. I get all the time people asking me, is this a pyramid? Or I get people on a follow-up saying, you know, I talked to so-and-so where I read online this is a pyramid. And I don't want to get anything, I don't want to have anything to do with a pyramid. So I want to read something to you. This is actually online, and I'll give you the reference here in a minute because the corporation tells me I should do that, but it's called a 30-year standard. No legal ruling has had more impact on the direct sales industry than the landmark FTC versus Amway decision in the matter of Amway is what it's called. In 1975, the FTC accused Amway of operating as an illegal pyramid. After 4 years of litigation, in 1979, Amway prevailed. An administrative law judge ruled that Amway's multi-level marketing program was a legitimate business opportunity as opposed to a pyramid scheme. Had Amway lost multi-level marketing history after 1979, may have been non-existent. Amway's victory paved the way for hundreds of multi-level marketing companies that would follow. So significant was the decision that the FTC during the next 30 years focused on deceptive practices of multi-level marketing companies, such as earning representations or medical claims, rather than attacking the structure of multi-level marketing programs. Only in recent years has the Federal Trade Commission begun to question the personal use component of the multi-level marketing model. The Amway case is still the rule to this very day. More than 3 decades later, the Amway decision is cited in virtually every federal or state case involving a multi-level marketing company. Although tension will always exist between the industry and government over the definition of a retail sale, for example, distributor personal use versus non-participant sale, the Amway Safeguards test continues to be the gold standard in evaluating the difference between legitimate multi-level marketing companies and illegal pyramids. You can go and Google the Amway case. It was a landmark Federal Trade Commission versus Amway decision called the Amway case, if you choose to do so, to view the actual text. And the gentleman who represents a lot of multi-levels in this particular matter, who wrote this particular article, is Jeffrey A. Babner out of Portland, Oregon. He's a principal attorney in the Portland, Oregon law firm of Babner & Associates, which represents many of the leading direct sales companies in the United States today and abroad. Hope that helps. We are going to do a seminar for you this afternoon, and I would like to just get right down to business and let Shelley start off. So with that said, take it away, hon.
Hi, Vancouver. How are you? I have to extend an apology that I have a little hoarse voice here today. So I'm battling a little cold, but other than that, I'm excited to be here. It may not sound full on, but I feel excited and motivated and just excited to share with you. And what an honor it is to be here, representing Worldwide and the amazing leadership you have in this room. We just appreciate you and appreciate all of you investing in yourselves, not because Bob and I are here, because you made a decision to invest in yourself and your business. And if we can give you one thing here today in the seminar that you can walk away that can move your business forward, we feel that we've added value. And that's really the premise that we want to make sure that we're fulfilling and when we're honored to be here and share with you. So I'm just going to cover some things. And Bob and our whole philosophy in building this business has been keep it simple. You know, just the real simplicity of this business. I think as some of you may be new here in the room and you saw something in the presentation and the business plan that you grasped, and I think it's the simplicity of what we have. Don't lose that. And so we're going to cover some basic steps and what it takes to put this business together. And we've been, initiating these in our business for 20 years, and they're called CORE. And we're just going to talk about CORE and how, from Bob and I's background and from our perspective, how we continue today to still fulfill our responsibilities in leadership. And we just need to stay core. And if we just understand that and then just be examples, that duplication process just continues to go on. And that's what we want. We want a business that really is going to outlive Bob and I, what we talk about, a legacy, and that's what this is about. So I'm going to talk about three things, just basics here. This business is connecting with people. I talk about going out and making a friend. And there's a book that Ron Prier recommends to all the Taste of Diamond winners, Emeralds and Diamonds every year that they should read, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I highly recommend. We have our children, 15 and 17, starting to go through our book list. And they're reading The Slight Edge now. The next book they're going to be reading is this book. But making relationships. Go out and make a friend. We'll talk about that. You own your own business. And today is really getting you to understand ownership and then transferring that into leadership. That's what you want, is really grasping ownership and transferring it to leadership. And ownership is really understanding that you own a business and you would not go out anywhere else and consume from another store, another venue, anything else, but to totally support your business 100%. So using the products, and we're going to talk about going out and marketing the products, that you have amazing products. And then lastly, the importance of a relationship upline. That is really what I believe has probably been the most solid thing for Bob and I, keeping us consistent to continue to move on and grow, is fighting for that relationship upline and not taking it for granted. And we are so honored to be able to be personally working with Brad and Julie Duncan as our sponsors. They're just an amazing couple. And again, at the level of Crown, and as they're out there still being that example, still building that business, being the highest level of leader you can be. And they set that bar high for us. But the thing that I love about them is they are our friends. And they're amazing friends that we want to continue to honor by our growth in our business, not only show them how much we love them and respect them and what they've done, and not take them for granted, but to continue to grow, because that's going to bless them for all they've given to us and our family. So keeping it simple. So I'm just going to we're going to go through core, and Bob and I are going to have basically conversation back and forth on the topics. And just when we sit down with the newest person, this is what we want to convey. And I think you would all agree this business is about the newest business we're bringing on. Not that we aren't all maturing as IBOs, even today after 20 years being involved in our business, but the newest person, how we can take this and transfer the leadership, the teaching principles, and the attitude, about this. So we believe the first and number one component of core is show the plan. We believe everything starts with showing the plan, okay? And so I'll talk about just how I can help Bob as he goes out and basically does most of the presentations and showing the plan. I may get those people in front of him and, get people to a plan, give him a name, give him a referral. So he chooses to show the plan. And I know some of you out there are single, so you're doing both the operations end of the business and creating and developing your business. And some of you, as husband and wives, may be both out there, maybe initiating and showing plans, which is fantastic. That's the great thing. You are an independent business owner. You can be flexible around those things. But I'd highly encourage when you do that you are checking upline, that you're counseling upline, because you got to remember the example that you're setting is very important too. And everybody's situation is different. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. So helping Bob with context. We all have our sphere of influences that ladies, I'll speak to you, is when we're out there is different than what Bob's are. And when I was working full-time building this, obviously my sphere of influence was different. And even today, as I'm out just living my life, that's exactly how we get names, living our life, okay? And again, this business is 98% attitude and 2% detail. And I think we all need to keep in front of us when we walk out there. There are people around us all the time, and what we represent when we walk into a room, just by living your life, that it's that law of attraction. Are you walking with a smile? What does your body language say? Do you show energy and being positive? And I know sometimes that isn't necessarily how we feel, and that's just sometimes where you just got to go game on. And I've just got to make that switch when I walk into a room, when I go into any kind of venue, that the opportunity may present itself to have the next, biggest, fastest growing Langet Olive worldwide, because I had that great attitude. Okay, so making contacts. The way I do that is starting conversations, how to win friends and influence people. That's what I'm teaching all the ladies in our business to do. Walk in and give sincere compliments. any way I can, to a gentleman, to a couple, to a single, whatever I can observe that can allow me to be genuine and sincere. Because people can read that. You know what I mean? And I think the greatest way to really initiate that is start in your own home. You know, sometimes we get so worried about going outside of our home. How about at your own home? Start sincerely complimenting your spouse, the things you see them do, your children, your family, your friends. You know, give genuine, sincere compliments. And then that becomes who you are. So when you walk into a situation, I'm always looking for an opportunity to make somebody smile or just make their day better. And if it happens where we get in a conversation, then I can open the door based on their attitude or the things they share with me and just say, you have some talents. And I don't know if you're looking, and I can't promise you anything, but my husband is putting together a very dynamic team right now. And I would love to be able to give you his name. I can't promise you anything, but if you give me a name and number, I'd love to have him give you a call. And trust me, he's got a lot of people he's wanting to talk to right now, especially with the economy the way it is and the marketplace. And I just had a name the other day that I got sitting down and actually closing an account at a bank. That usually isn't really a how to win friends and influence people thing. But, it was interesting. I just looked at this young man, and he was sharp, and I just said, I bet you're that age. You just think outside of the box. You're more entrepreneurial. He goes, absolutely. And he couldn't give me his card fast enough. And Bob had a quality invite with him, and we're going to show the plan to him. So I think just being aware of that and transferring that. Third-party approach is a wonderful approach, too, when you're talking to people, is that if maybe you don't have any signals where you're seeing there's a need, you might just say, my husband's looking. Do you know of anybody? Okay? And then if they are looking, they can say, well, tell me more about it. You might open that door. So it's third party. He's looking for some people right now. And again, it opens the door for you to give dialogue that you feel comfortable with, to get the name and number, and then that's why with third party and edify and give that to my husband. And then the other way I will help develop, name a day is one of the things we always claim. Name a day on our prospect list is to do a product approach. Could happen where you're carrying around a perfect water, an excess energy drink, and we teach all the time, if you are out and about any place, anytime, carry it. And if it's an excess energy drink, I've had some, maybe younger single people say, I don't know that I can be, buying so many excess a day or whatever. I go, it doesn't have to be anything in the can. Just carry the can, really, to just get conversation going, right? My brother, who's a great leader in our business, Mike Mulligan, he says that any time that he is consuming one of our products, he says, I do it in front of my group or somebody. Opening a twist tube, drinking a water in excess, because it's exposure for your company, for your business. And then if I get dialogue about that product, I said, oh my gosh, my husband has an incredible online business. And I said, you would not believe the things I get sent to my house. I don't even have to go basically in the store today anymore. I have perishables. Other than that, everything else I get from my husband's company. And I said, you would not believe the store. So who knows how that could open up the door for that transition to expose your business through a product approach, or maybe transfer it into somebody wanting to look at owning a business. Does that make sense? So we're trying to really be committed and teaching our leaders to get a name a day and do that. If you're a couple, that's 60 names a month, you guys. And looking for a need. Bob talks about that all the time, finding that need and that desire. And then once you get that going, really, you have got everything going to start to get your business moving forward at an accelerated rate, because the prospects. Then from the plan, if from that plan that person isn't interested, or maybe it's not good timing for them, Bob can determine, and then, will redirect me. Maybe we're going to contact them, then transfer them to offer the opportunity to earn their business being a client. But everything starts with a plan, and we default from there. Because when we were so busy, both having corporate jobs, to be honest, I didn't have a lot of time to really do retailing. So initially it started with us showing the plan, and all of our volume defaulted from our personal consumption, from people getting in the business, or from clients that came from that. So,
guys, I want to just let you know that based on our years of experience in this, I'm a big believer that every time you do anything, especially if it's for the first time, always check up line. Run it up the flagpole, make sure it's duplicatable long term. So always think long term. We've got a lot of people and that we've seen come and go in our organization that when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is putting new eyeballs in front of this thing, they're going out and they're creating new ideas all the time. We call it the Idea of the Month Club. And it will kill your business. because it creates confusion. Anytime there's change in any organization, especially as it grows, it will kill your organization. You want to keep it simple, and you want to keep it the same throughout your entire career in this business. I remember one time seeing Brad Duncan on a video when he was a Ruby doing a nuts and bolts. It was a video of his nuts and bolts when he was a Ruby before him and Julie ever got married. And it's the exact same thing today that he taught when he was a Ruby 25 years ago. Not one thing's changed, not one. So I know technology is out there today and it helps us enhance what we do. But I got to be honest with you, technology should not replace the people aspect of this business. If you're showing the plan online, for example, I don't have a problem with that if it's the exception and not the rule. Because if you really think that you can see the eyes and the heart and the soul of somebody through a computer screen when you're talking to them on the phone, you're mistaken. All too often, I always tell everybody that if you're going to show the plan online, which I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you, but if you're going to show a plan online, what I would do is have them pull up the website and have them read each page to you, and at the end of each page, ask them, so what does that mean to you? What do you think that means? That way you know there's interaction. Otherwise, when you're going through the sites, you don't know if they're in the restroom, in the kitchen getting a hot dog. You have no idea what they're doing, okay? So I want you to have them read it and then ask them, so tell me what you think that means. And you'll go through slide by slide by slide, and what you're really doing is two things there. Number one, you're getting them involved. You're connecting, like Frank Luntz says, number one. Number two, you're really teaching them first time, if they get excited about this, how to show the plan. They're showing the plan to you the first time they ever see it. Okay? So I'd recommend you do it that way, but I don't recommend you show a lot of plans online. I've never had great success doing that. I reserve it for me personally. If I'm going to be doing that at distance and I don't plan on seeing that person immediately, and I know I can get him to a regional, like for example, we met a really sharp young man last night. If I were to show him the plan, didn't have time to do it while I was here, and I thought, well, he's at distance. Do I really want to drive all the way up to Vancouver from Spokane? Maybe I'll show him a plan online and then get him to a regional right away. That might be the exception for me, but 9 times out of 10, I want to sit down because I believe the eyes are the windows to your soul. And when I can look in your eyes and I can see your emotions and I can see how you're reacting, I can see if you're crossing your arms or not crossing your arms, how you're responding to what it is I'm giving to you, I can adjust the plan I'm doing to better connect with you because we all know it's about connecting, right? People, I ask this of people all the time. After they've been in our business for about 6 weeks, I ask them, I said, why did you get in? And I say, was it this? And they say, no. Was it this? No. Was it this? No. Why did you get in? We got in because we saw how Shelley looked at you the night we saw the plan from you, and I wanted my wife to look at me the way your wife looked at you. I was so excited to see how you talked about your wife during the plan the first time we saw the plan. That's why we got in. It's not the technology. It's not S-curve economics. It's not our products. It's not all this other stuff. You represent to people what they want in their life. And you don't have to have nice cars. You don't have to have a nice home. If you're edifying properly from the time you sit down and when you first meet someone, through however you plan on inviting them to the plan, through the follow-up, and again, to maybe a meeting like this, if you're edifying your upline and you're simply the conduit to the person you want to get them in front of next, you win. You could be the brokest person with the lowest education in the room, and it doesn't matter, guys, because to this very day, I'm not a big deal in this business. But my upline, whoever I'm going to put them in front of next, they're the big deal. And if you understand that, you never have to answer a lot of questions if you're not the big deal. If you make yourself the big deal, they expect you to have all the answers to their questions, and that typically keeps you from keeping them in the process. And we've always taught, Dave Servant says, the purpose of a meeting is to book another meeting. How are you going to book another meeting if they think they can get all the answers from you? There's no reason to come to a regional or a second look or anything else where we can keep them in the process. And the process is the key here because I'm a big believer. If you look up the word leadership, leadership is defined as a person of influence. And the more you get someone around you, they'll start to trust you, and then and only then can you start to influence decisions in their life. Does that make sense? Okay. So first things first, how do I start off a new guy when it comes to showing him the plan? I want him to be able to qualify people. I really am a big believer in this business that if you just show this to anybody with a 98-degree temperature, you're going to become very frustrated. There's a lot of people who say they're looking, but they have no ambition to back it up. And so you've got to qualify people. And I'm a big believer of qualifying people. What I mean by that is you want to identify a want, need, or desire. And it's got to be so strong that they can't get it from their job, that they're looking for a secondary or tertiary way to create cash flow, knowing they'll never get it from their job or even a second job. And if you never identify that need, they'll get out as quick as they got in. And so I always explain to people, I hope when I sit down with someone, they're skeptical and they're almost negative. Because if they're skeptical and negative, but they're willing to do their due diligence, they're willing to do their homework, really figure out what they've got a hold of here, I know that once they gather their information and I get them to come on the other side of the fence, they're not going to get blown out. Because if you made an emotional decision to get in, you'll make an emotional decision to get out. Make sense? All right? So here's what I believe. There's several ways to contact and invite everybody. And you got to get okay at all of them. You got to get great at one or two, but you got to get okay at all of them. For example, the napkin plan. I think it's one of the better approaches we've had for a while in Worldwide, and I'll tell you why. Business as usual is conducted by drawing things out on a piece of paper. Now, if you were to pull out a miniature version of the napkin plan with little stickmen on it, I think you're making a big mistake. I think you need to draw that out. Can you imagine me going golfing, going up to three guys and saying, hey, can I golf with you guys in your threesome? They go, sure, join us. As we turn 9, I say to them, listen, I'm going to go and get an egg salad sandwich. Go ahead and play through. They go, no, we'll come in and have lunch with you. And they proceed to ask me what I do. And I start telling them, they go, well, how's that work? And I say, hold on just a minute. And I reach in my pants pocket and pull out a brochure. And a 3-page brochure comes out with little stickmen and everything. And I'm going, that's what I do. They'd look at you with jaundiced eyes, all right? And they'd go, holy buckets, we're sorry we asked, okay? And you could always say at that point, if you don't like that, then over here in this pocket, I got pens and pencils, and over here I got candy for you, okay? All right? So I'm not a big fan of that. If you draw it out, when I used to be the regional branch manager for MCI, if I had to sit down with you and identify your needs, we would draw things out. We'd draw things out, for example, if you were a trucking company, we had to figure out how you can stay in contact with home base. We might have to figure out X amount of 800 lines or maybe calling cards at that time before cell phones ever existed. We draw things out and try and figure out schematically how we could roll that the whole thing into business, and then we'd propose to you a solution, and then hopefully you'd buy off of my solution. Well, that's what you're doing in this business. You're looking for people that have problems, needs, wants, or desires, and then you're providing a solution to fill it. If all it is a product need, then don't show them the plan with the idea that you're going to get them in to build a big business. You show them the plan always, no matter, even if they're just looking for a product, and you're setting that seed in their brain so if something changes down the road, they can always come back to that and remember the big picture. But if all they want is rhodiola, don't try and sell them SA8. All right? Give them rhodiola. Make sense? Direct approach. There's all kinds of direct approach. You've heard this on one of the CDs we produced, but I'm a big believer that one of the easiest ways to create retail is what I call a direct approach with family members and friends. And I'll give it to you right now. If I were to call up David, for example, I'd say, hey, David, Bob Coomer, how you doing, buddy? Great. Is this a good time? I want to clear the air. I want to make sure that whatever he's doing at that time, he's focused on what I have to say on that phone call. He'd say, yeah, fire away. He said, listen, what are you and Caroline doing this Tuesday night around 8 o'clock or next Thursday at 8 o'clock in the evening? Well, nothing. Why? Now I got him. I already cleared his calendar. He can't come back and say, well, I had this plan, this plan, this plan, this plan, right? I got him. We'd love to have you guys come analyze this project for us. Would you do that for us? Well, of course, if he's a friend, they're going to do it. Family and friends, they're going to do that for you. Now, you've already taken it away. You've asked them if it's clear on this night or that night. You've let them know it's business attire. Would you like us to pick you up that evening? Sure, it's going to be around 8 o'clock Tuesday. We'll see you then. We'll swing by and grab you about 7:30. So I take them to the plan. And I take them to the plan, and let's say Brad Duncan's showing the plan. Brad shows the plan, and David leans over to me and goes, it's pyramid. So I write down pyramid on a piece of paper. I just couldn't recruit my friends. Recruit my friends. I write down any objection he throws up at me, and then when the plan's over, I go up to Brad and say, hey, Brad, this is a dear friend of Shelley's of mine. This is the Paynes, and they came here tonight to help us analyze our business model. You know, we were looking at this thing, David and our Brad, and David and I were talking, how is this not a pyramid? You don't come up and say, hey, David Payne thinks it's pyramid, hammer him. All right? So you make sure that you put the onus on you. You say, listen, we were looking at this thing. How's this not a pyramid, Brad? So he says, well, that's a great question. Right? Well, Brad, you know, I just don't know if I could use my friends. I just feel like I'd be using my friends to try and get them to buy something so I can make money off my friends. He said, well, that's another great question. Thanks for asking. He'd answer the question. So I thank him for his time. And the reason why I let Brad know right up front that they're here tonight to analyze that business is so that he doesn't pinch their head for a major function or you need to go here next or you need to do this. So we jump back in the car and I say to David and Caroline, David, listen, would you mind if within a couple days we set up an appointment with you and Caroline, showed you some of the benefits of having some of our products versus some of the ones you're buying today, the benefits of cost, time, how we can save you money, the incentives we can provide and everything else. Would you mind if we set up a time to do that and allowed us to earn some of your business? What are they going to say? Absolutely. Now, here's my attitude. I want at least 2 to 3 products. I am not excited about a $300 product order because there's 2 things everybody in Canada and the United States don't have anymore, time and money. Every time I see you, even though you're just changing your point of purchase from the store you were used to buy it at to me, if you have to write a check for $300 to me, you don't want to see me. I represent to you $300 gone every time you see me, okay? If every time you show up and deliver a product to me, or you have a drop ship to me and I take time with you, it's time you don't have with your precious kids. Everyone's busy today. And so you don't have time or money. So you represent to me both a person who's taking money away from me and time away from me. So I'm interested in getting 2 to 3 products, typically, about 20 PV, and if you can work them up over time to get free shipping, that'd be awesome. But 20 PV, $60. You could easily move $60 worth of volume through every one of your customers, and I've always taught 10 to 12 customers at least a month. If you service 10 to 12 customers, get that done within the first 30 to 90 days, you qualify for Fast Track, you're profitable, you're making money, and our attrition rate goes down to next to nothing. And so we want to make sure you're profitable. Now, I'm not opposed to grand store openings. I'm not opposed to nutrition clinics, artistry clinics, any of that stuff. But I don't have to do any of that stuff and buy tents, table tents, and products and everything else. If I can just up front get them to become a customer within the first 30, 90 days using a direct approach, I'm building my self-image, I'm making money, I'm excited, I'm pumped, they're pumped, have a great product, a great price, and now I can teach that to my group because I'm done what I'm attempting to teach you. There's so much stuff out there today in the way of tools to create retail that if we don't learn something simple, we get overwhelmed by it. And then we take it to the next level, which is sponsoring. We get overwhelmed by it. Then there's contacting, overwhelmed, follow-up, overwhelmed. We got to keep it simple. That is the simplest, easiest way to create volume I've ever seen for the newest person. Make sense? All right, now, there's about 10 different ways to approach. There's that simple direct approach. You can use a direct approach on an airplane, different approach. You could use a napkin plan. We used to have at one time a CD drop. I was never a big fan of the CD drop, but I taught it. Why? Because I'm a dream builder. I'm a worldwide dream builder. I'm a team player. I teach what Worldwide teaches, not what I think I should be doing in my group and have a separate agenda. And so I never felt comfortable coming up and going, hey, David, listen, I'm going through a business expansion right now. I'd like you to listen to this CD and get back to me in 2 or 3 days. I've got it promised to someone else. And if there's an interest on your part, by all means, let's sit down and talk. Well, business as usual, you don't hand CDs to people on the street. You don't run up to someone and go, here, listen to this, and you're fired up. I'll get back to you in 2 days. Okay? Right? So every time you approach somebody in this business, you have to be thinking business as usual. There's got to be some semblance of an idea of what you're talking about. So when you say I'm in the business development group, well, that's business as usual. If you tell me you're an engineer, I don't know if you're a sanitation engineer, I don't know if you're a civil engineer, electrical engineer, but I have some idea of what you're talking about when you say you're an engineer. So every time you come up with some way to approach people, you've got to remember that it's got to be business as usual. If not, it immediately throws up a red flag. And if you have to go, you don't have it down. Every one of you, I don't care how long you've been in your position and where you work at, you could explain to anybody if they came up to you on the street within 2 seconds what you do. And you wouldn't say once. You get in this business, you get tongue-tied, and you wonder why you're not having the success you have when you go out there talking to people at the park or down on the street. You've got to get smooth. You've got to get it going on. All right? So we have a 2-step approach. I still think it's the best approach there is. Now, out of all the approaches, I explain to people that when you go golfing, there's several golf clubs in a bag. Some are drivers. Some are maybe a 3-wood. Some's a 7-iron, a 5-iron. You have to know which iron to use in different positions. Now, my favorite iron in a golf bag is a 7-iron. I can spank a 7-iron all day long, 150 on the pin. But I pull out my driver very rarely because I spray it all over the place. All right? Now, my driver for me would be what I call a direct approach, not for the retail side of it, but another direct approach, or a CD drop. That's a driver. To me, it just, I don't feel good about it, right? But I feel really good about a 2-step, and here's why. I can use the same 2-step approach today that I used 21 years ago when I got in, and it still works. The napkin plan will become antiquated over time. There'll be enough people in your demographic that will see it that as soon as you pull it out, they'll go, I've seen this, I'm not interested. And you can't tell your story because someone else already has. See, I'm a big believer that if I can get in front of you and I've connected with you, or maybe someone else hasn't, and I show you the plan, I'll sponsor you. I really believe that. I'll sponsor you. I believe I'm that good at connecting with people that if I connect with you, I'll sponsor you regardless of what you've seen before. But I want to be able to tell my story. And if I can't even get my story in front of you, I'm done. You with me? Okay, so you've got to learn every single approach. You've got to use a curiosity approach. You've got to use what I call a relationship approach, where maybe you'll see somebody 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a grocery store over a 2 to 3 month period of time, and eventually when you call them up to deliver the message, they don't even think twice about sitting down with you over a cup of coffee. People I've seen in airports where I know they're coming back to Spokane, but they only come back every 6 weeks. Maybe they're a pharmaceutical sales rep. I'll use a relationship approach on them. And I'll always deliberately have something going on when they come into town, or when I go to their town. I'm always busy, But I always call them and touch bases. Hey, Joe, Bob Coomer, I don't know if you remember me. We met in the airport last time you were in Spokane. Yeah, Bob, how you doing? Good. Have you been out golfing lately? I have. How's your game? It's still as bad as it was when I met you. It's terrible, you know. How about you? Yeah, I had a great game the other day. I said, hey, next time I come to Seattle, we'll have to get together. I said, when do you typically take lunch? He goes, every day at the same time, noon. Well, guess what? I'm going to call him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and say, you want to go to lunch? Because I know he can't go because it's not duplicatable to go to lunch with everybody I prospect. But I'm going to stay in touch with him. And when I eventually feel comfortable with the relationship I develop, if he's in my town or I'm in his town, I'm going to call him up and say, hey, Joe, how you doing? Great. Hey, listen, Bob Coomer, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but we're going through an expansion right now, and we're looking for some key guys. You have always impressed me as one of those guys we've looked for. When you're going to be back in the town, I'd like to sit down and buy you a cup of coffee, take about 15, 20 minutes of your time and explain to you what it is we're looking for when you're back in town. He won't even ask me, what is this all about? Because I have a relationship with him. The problem with the relationship approach is it might take you 6 weeks before you can do that. And if you took 6 weeks to approach everybody, you'd be 90 years old before you ever went diamond. So you have to have a pipeline that's filled up with a direct approach, a curiosity approach, a relationship approach, a CD drop, a napkin plan, a two-step approach. But you're going to have one that you're really good at, but you got to know how to teach all of them because not everyone has your charming personality. And there's going to be some people that are sanguines where you might be a cleric, and you're going to have to teach them different approaches that work for their personality. And you're going to have to know them pretty well. I know how to use every club in my bag. Not well, but I know what each club does. And I can tell someone that my 150 or my 7-iron is 150 yards out, no problem. Okay? My 8-iron, that's right at 140. And I have to know what club to use and how to use it. I may not be great at it, but I'm really proficient with one. I can spank a 7-iron. I mean, that's my two-step approach because that will stand the test of time. It takes a little bit more time to learn a two-step, but I promise you long-term, that is the choice for me of any approach I'm ever going to use because that's how business as usual is conducted. And as you start to grow, especially with the caliber of people you want to sponsor, they're going to look at you. And if it's business as usual, they're going to jump all over this thing and they're going to get in business with you. Does that make sense? Okay. One-on-ones, I was a chicken to do one-on-ones. I was a big chicken. I was very comfortable to do what I had to do in my job at MCI, but outside of my career, I was chicken to do anything. And I was afraid to do one-on-ones because I thought one of you would throw an objection at me I couldn't answer. So I'd just as soon qualify you, see if you had a need, and then get you to a board plan. And I'd get you to a board plan even if it was one I was doing. You didn't know I was doing it. I'd have you walking with my wife, sit down in the front row. I'd tell the host to have a seat for you, and then I'd say, okay, I'll be in a minute. And they'd introduce this big shot, you know, this all-galaxy regional branch manager for MCI who's handsome and he's 6'10", and he's ripped like a bronze god and everything else, okay? And I'd come walking in, and my prospect's going, it's him. I didn't have an upline local. My upline was at distance. Your upline's at distance, David, right? I didn't have a local upline. So I had to go, and I had to have the speaker host edify me. I had to tell this guy, listen, I'm going to put you in front of about 6, 8, 9, 10 people that I've already qualified. But I said that night, put your best foot forward, come in business attire, and we'll see how it turns out. And I'd show the plan. And when it's all said and done with, Shelley would grab them if there's a bunch of people in the room. And if they were trying to get out, we'd book a meeting with them. She'd get an information system. She knew my calendar. We'd book it. If you're single, you've got to get that done right away because the purpose of a meeting is to book another meeting. But if I could do one-on-ones, I believe they're a whole lot more effective than a board plan. Because in a one-on-one, you don't have a bunch of people in the room that they're afraid to ask questions or they just feel more comfortable in their own skin when it's one-on-one with you two. You can read body language and address it there without embarrassing them. But I was too chicken to do that. But I will tell you, the best results I've ever had building this business is when I've done one-on-ones and then gotten them to a board plan for a second look. And it's also duplicatable. If every one of you would do a one-on-one before you ever took them to your upline, so they're coming to your upline not to see how the business works, but to meet the people you're in business with, who then can turn around and edify you, that is the greatest way to show and build this business, in my opinion, is to show the plan first, so we're all duplicating, and then take them to a board plan. Does that make sense? Last thing I'll tell you about a board plan. Board plan. You want to bring chairs in as you need them. There's nothing more unprofessional than having 5 people in the room with 8 million chairs set up. Okay? Another thing is keep the chairs in your car. Don't bring them in assuming you're going to need them. Keep them in the car. Send your spouse in if you're married. If you're not, come in. If there's no room or if there's no chairs, then go back and get the chairs and bring them in. Be careful, guys. There's some beautiful homes, I'm sure, where you show the plan. The last thing you want to do is have no caps on the bottom of those chairs and have beautiful hardwood floors and scrape the floors. If it's raining out, which probably is like every day of the week here in Vancouver, okay, you want to make darn sure you take your shoes off the door. because someone's got carpet and they've got to get it cleaned every time you come in. They're not excited about having you back. All right? We use our own products, cut-up bars. You don't put them on plates. You put them on paper plates. It takes small samplings of excess. This is just something we do in our group checkup line before you do this. But if I have Crossline plugging into my house plan, let's say I'm doing a plan for David Payne and I got Roland and Lily plugging in, I don't let Roland and Lily come unless they bring an excess for every 2 people that come, including themselves. Because it's not their responsibility to pass out the excess. And if you've got somebody that's a broke young person or young couple, they can't afford to pass out excess to 30, 40 people in a room. So if everyone brought a can of excess for every 2 people that came and handed it to the host, it's duplicatable. It's awesome, and it works great, and there's no hard feelings, and everybody's great. We're unified. We're fired up. Okay? And by the way, if they don't use it all, you don't go in the refrigerator and take it when you go back home, okay? My Lord, we've got to use some common sense here, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so last thing. Let's talk about the follow-up. Let's talk about the follow-up. There's a difference in opinion on the follow-up. I don't go to their house on the follow-up. I have them come to my house on the follow-up, or I meet them in a public meeting, and I'll tell you why. On a follow-up, if I want to get them online, I don't know if they have high-speed internet. I do. On a follow-up, I can bring out all my products. I can offer them excess, my coffee. I can offer them bars, chips, everything I've got. Man, I'm a full-on grocery store every time they come over, and I can show them all the products I have by just giving them samples. I control the environment in my house. There's no dogs barking. The phone's turned off. Everything else in their house, God only knows what's going to happen. And so I've always been a big believer that if you want something bad enough, you'll pay whatever price you have to pay. And sometimes I think we drop the bar too much. My attitude's always been, if David Payne wants a job and I'm a regional branch manager for MCI, he interviews with me local, and I tell him the second interview's in Seattle. If he wants it bad enough, he's not going to tell me he doesn't have a car to get there. He'll find a way to get there. My attitude is, if you want me to spend my money, my time to help you, then you'll come to my house. I'm going to inconvenience you. You're not going to inconvenience me. I'm not going to meet you halfway, so if you no-show me, I'm stuck. Okay, if I'm going to get no-showed that night, I'm going to get no-showed in the convenience of my home. You with me? My opinion. So you need to check upline because your upline may not agree with that. But that's just something we've always taught and done in our own group. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay, just a couple things on plans, house plans, because it's, really what we've, when Bob's showing the plan, he's got 4 or 5 plans, a week that we do in their house plans because that duplication process, we're getting in front of more faces. Just some little tips. House plans. Arriving times, explain to people. I think it's important we get new people in. We typically, a house plan is at 8 o'clock. There may be some variances, and you would check upline on that, but we've always been taught 8 o'clock, and we're being conscientious of the family time. People come home from work, have time with their kids. The younger kids usually are in bed. That's why we have it at 8 o'clock. If you're coming to a home 15 minutes early, that's all you need to be there. And I'm just talking from our experience. When we used to host house plans, people get so excited to show up at an hour early. And I know the enthusiasm. I understand. I see that. You don't want to hamper enthusiasm. That's what I'm talking about. But you need to be conscientious of a home, a private home, because there's times, guys, I would get home from work 5 minutes, 10 minutes before, we would be showing the plan, have David come in and whatever, and we had all these people lined up on our lawn, and you got to think about what people are seeing, what the example we're setting out there in our communities, etc. And Bob and I always wanted to have something that everybody around us who knew what we were doing was an ambassador of what we did. So what were we representing? Think of the newest person, what it's going to look like for them. So 15 minutes ahead, no children at plans. And no pets. Silly little thing. Talk about that before you go into a house. Setting up those things. Again, just those standards and what's going on in the house. Cell phones turned off. Just simple little duplicatable things. Little faithful to the little things that can make something successful. And we teach that. Make sure that the person is doing it. I always call when Bob tells me I'm going down into this home to show a plan. I take it upon myself that I will call up the person hosting, if it's a couple, the gal, and make sure that she has board and easel, has poster boards, just simple little things that she's ready to go, that she doesn't feel embarrassed, it's awkward, that she's got BOVs to hand out, business overviews to hand out, so we're going through some of those checklists. And then we always talk and teach about the information systems. And this is really, really important because we can see enthusiasm get going, and sometimes because people maybe because they're not checking upline, they don't have the finances, and they think, well, I'll just give them this instead of giving what's recommended in the information system. And you have to understand, Worldwide and management team works really hard with the Amway Corporation to make sure that we follow under an accreditation. So the things and tools that we're giving have been approved. So it keeps us all our business very legal in what we're doing and how we're representing it. And if you start, as an individual, start taking and putting your own things and then your own twist, it can not only jeopardize your business, but it could really jeopardize all of our businesses by doing those things. So just check. And there is our through the worldwide site, when you become a Premier member, there is a list, a PDF you can print off through the training site that lists everything that goes into an information system. Make sure you're staying on top of that and checking that and doing that. And it's a minimal cost. And make sure that you are giving that to the newest person. And when we have a plan, we do that again. Like Bob says, Bob and I both have our phone. Most of us, I think, a lot of us are running our calendars from our phones. But you have a calendar there, and in that calendar, if you're a leader, and I assume being in this room you are, you should know the next meeting that's coming up with your upline, with Worldwide, a next major function. You know the dates, you can talk about it, because that's what I do. Bob and I work as a team that I will get that newer prospect, or if I'm there and somebody has somebody new there, I'm talking about the next thing and I'm promoting it and I'm getting excited about it and talking about what that means to them as they're going through that decision-making process. And right now, we build this from function to function. So we left Spring Leadership, we're going to Family Union. Every conversation we have with anybody is about the family unit, the function, right? So you need to know how to talk about that, and Bob will give you some more information today. And then again, just follow up in booking that meeting, okay?
I want to add a couple things, guys, that when I establish my schedule and I put board plans in someone's home, I've always been taught by my upline, Brad Duncan, that you typically can't work more than 9 growing legs, okay? And if you're working 9 growing legs, that means you show 2 plans a month in there. That's 18 days. I mean, you're a hoss if you've got 9 growing legs. That's 18 days. And a 5-day work week, that's 20 days total, out excluding weekends. And we typically do nuts and bolts on weekends. So that's when you're going from Ruby on to Diamond, okay? But I always tell everybody, if I book and plan in your home, here's the deal. Here's what I expect from you. You can't cancel it. I don't care what comes up. You cannot cancel that board plan, because if I've got someone else plugging in Crossline and you cancel it, man, it's a bad black eye for all of us that are showing up to your house and no one's there. We all look like a bunch of fools and very unprofessional, okay? So you can't cancel on me. Do not communicate with me via text. I talk to people on text when it's an emergency or I know that they probably can't get to their voicemail right away, like my kids. Or if David needed something and he knows it's going to be time sensitive as I'm crossing the border, he texts me and I text him back. But I explain to people, don't cancel on me, number one. Number two, don't do it on text. All right? Don't do it on text. Because I may not read it and I'm going to show up with my prospect. And the greatest way to prove to your group that you know what you're talking about is always to show up to your own board plans with a new prospect. Because even if you get no-showed that night by the downline that's supposed to be hosting that plan, you've led by your example by bringing a new prospect there, so you're showing the plan that night no matter what. And you let them know that when you book that board plan, saying, you can't cancel on me. This is something that's in stone. I don't care if I'm on my deathbed. I am going to make it to that plan that night. I'm not canceling on you, so you cannot cancel on me. And we come to a mutual agreement on that, because as a partnership, I've got to make sure that he understands that we're in a 50-50 deal here. I'm not doing 90% of the work and he gets 90% of the dough. It's a 50-50 deal here. Any one of us in this room, if we took 2 weeks off and didn't tell our bosses or our partners that we weren't where we weren't going or where we were going, if we didn't tell them that, we'd have problems. And this business is no different. You've got people flying in from out of town, driving across town, spending money and time, getting babysitters, and we've got to be accountable. That's part of CORE is accountability. We've got to be accountable to one another and make sure that we're on point and on purpose. Does that make sense? Okay? The other thing I want you to understand is this. Shelley touched on it. When you come to a plan, especially if it's a bigger house plan, come inside and wait. Either pick up your prospect like Worldwide's always taught, either where you've done the quality invite on them or however you've approached them, okay, or pick them up at their home. But pick them up. And if you don't pick them up, don't wait outside for them. It looks really goofy to the newest person that's coming up if there's 45, 50 people standing outside someone's house in a suit. It looks really weird, okay? That's not business as usual. I'll tell you another thing. This is the most loving, hugging group you'll ever find on the face of the earth. When you come up during a board plan, don't come up and hug everybody at the front door and hug each other and, man, they're thinking, kumbaya, this is finally the place I've always wanted to be, okay? You shake hands, you're professional, you come in and sit down. Come in and sit down with your prospect. Don't hang out in the back. Don't wait outside. Don't do any of that stuff. Come in and sit down. And keep the subject matter on them. Don't talk about BV, PV. because your guy's there for a second look. He already knows what he's there for. Maybe the guy sitting on the other side of you doesn't know what he's there for, and you start talking all these terms and all this and throwing things up and talking about the support corporation, you could blow out that person's prospect next to you. Okay? The last thing I want to share with you in that regard is this. As your house plans get a little bigger, obviously if you're driving depth right, they're going to be big at one point, but if you're driving depth and you're doing it properly, the way we've always taught with 5 to 7 meeting rule, it shouldn't be too big. But if it is, you guys that don't have new people, go to the back of the room. Don't go up to the speaker and want to shake his hand and ask questions and everything else. The board plan is for the newest person in his prospect. It's not for the guy that's been in for 6 months to a year. It's for the people that are there tonight for the first time. It's gotten so loud at some of my board plans that I literally cannot hear the prospect 6 inches from my face because everyone's talking, and they're not talking about the business. They're talking about this and that and the weather and this and what's going on. And, oh, my God, you University of British Columbia and all, whatever the subject is, okay? And I can't hear them. Guys, here's how you help each other. I really believe, and I've been studying this Canadian like big time that David and Caroline have put together. Every time I go up there, I just throw my pen on the table and go, what are you doing? They're so unified. There's no sarcasm. There's no nothing. They're all unified. I don't care if you're 50 PB, 10 PB, or 5 billion PB. Everyone knows their place on the team. Everyone's part of the team. So if you're really part of that team, which I believe all of you are, because there's some unbelievable unity in this room as well, here's what I think you ought to do. If you don't have a new face that night, you look for anybody in the room you don't recognize. And you walk up to him and say, hi, my name's Bob Coomer. What's your name? My name is David Payne. Hi, David. Are you new tonight? Are you here tonight for the first time? Yes, I am. What do you do for a living? I'm an attorney. Oh, hold on a minute. Hey, where's he at? Hey, where'd he go? Where's Mark? Mark, come here a minute. I call Mark Boyson over. This gentleman here, he's an attorney. He was a JAG in the Navy. Mark, why don't you come over here a minute? This gentleman here, he's an attorney as well. Tell him what you saw in this industry that you absolutely loved as an attorney and the reason why you're diversifying. And so if you don't have anybody new, instead of sitting back in the kitchen and talking out loud and being disruptive, you come up, and anybody you don't recognize, you come up to them and you introduce yourself and say, let me get you up in front of Brad. Let me get you up in front of the next speaker. And you walk them up, because if I got 3 or 4 new people, I'm going to go to the one that's the most fired up. And the other 3 could fade away, sneak out the door without me getting a plan booked in there or whatever else. I need your help. And you got to understand, there's going to come a time when that tide shifts. And you got 3 or 4 new people, and I don't. And you're going to want my help. And if we do that as a team, guys, and we all stay unified, and we focus on what we're there for that night, which is not to shoot the bull, okay, have fun, see each other, high five. We can do that after everything's said and done. We have a night out or whatever, okay? We're there that night to grow our businesses. That's the purpose of a board plan, is to grow our businesses. Does that make sense? And so we've got to work together as a team. And if you don't have new people, man, if I can just encourage you to do that and teach that all the time, it will really, really, really help you grow. Does that help? Okay.
Once we've gone through the process, we know they've made a decision to move forward in the business. Then I will go ahead and I will schedule a registration. And this is just what Bob and I do. You may choose to do something different. We schedule the registration at my home, because I can control the environment. And I want to give a designated amount of time. Typically, registration, I would say with questions, is about an hour and a half. I schedule 2. Live that window for a relationship, get to know them, especially if it's just somebody who was an acquaintance that started out that you met, like we met this great manager of our restaurant here. We don't know them. So the process of all the things we go through in the business is developing that friendship and relationship. Bob is not at the registration with me. He could be in the house, but this is just what we do, just because he interrupts me a lot, gets very excited, gets on tangents, and it ends up being 4 hours instead of 2. So it's just how we've operated. We found that works best. So, but there is a subsequent meeting we'll set up with the 4 of us where Bob covers, and he'll talk about that in a minute. But I will go through the registration. Again, I don't want them walking away with their eyes rolling back in their head. Keep it simple. I tell them when they sit down, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to get you all ramped up so that you are now have the opportunity to market all the Amway commodity products, artistry, nutrition, market the partner stores. This is getting you registered, okay? Then we're going to go through and we're going to make sure that they understand that they want to participate in getting an intro pack. That intro pack will initiate what's called Fast Track, the bonus structure as a new IBO, and Bob will talk about that. Okay, but getting them where we can get profit in their business immediately, so we want to get them the intro pack. Now, some people may not want the intro pack that has a combination of what we call our win products. They may choose to maybe go specific to maybe nutrition or artistry or ribbon. Okay, they can do that, and it still initiates their fast track. They could have an option. We've got businesses launching right now that are very excited, especially the women are very excited about moving forward with artistry. Well, that's fantastic. If that's where they want to go, they're still building a big business, but if that's going to help them initiate, move volume, and qualify for the fast track, you know, listen and listen and meet their needs as to what they want with regard to those product packs, and we go ahead and do that, and that initiates a 50 PV hit for them to launch their business. Now, we have businesses who maybe for whatever reason they can't get the intro pack. And, you know, we really want to set the bar high, the standard high, but we've had stuff happen where they come, they get registered, they just can't get the intro pack at that time. They still have the window of time within the 6 months to still get it. And as soon as they get it, it initiates their fast track. For fast track when they get that product pack, but if it isn't done on the registration date, it drops down to 25 PV is what they get. So there's that difference there. So just be aware, just some of those little details when registering people. Okay, and then what I do, we get that set up, and then I'm going to go through and get them registered for Premier and talk about the merits of the Premier membership and walk them through the site. And right then and there, typically we're not setting up their website for time, but I want them to get familiar and see all the value, all the benefit from Premier. And an incredible message just came down line about a gentleman sitting down and showing a plan and all the tools he used that Premier had available. It was unbelievable. Just, it is so wonderful. So you need to understand from the e-office to the function calendar to being able to facilitate and get your tickets ordered and all the different things that that has. I do an overview of that. And one of the things I focus on more than anything when I show the Premier is I focus on the profiles of success. And your uplines right on there. That's when I really start. We're always edifying, and start showing some lifestyle. Not that you haven't before, but here you've got visuals, and this is something they can go and duplicate in their business. And then the last thing I do is I give them, when they get the intro pack, but I will have there for them the catalogs, the Home Essentials, the Optimal Health, and the True Beauty. I have those 3 catalogs, and what I instruct them to do is take that catalog and to go through it page by page and take a Sharpie, something that you can really see. That, and this, as silly as this sounds, silly little thing, I take a pen, it's easy to miss it, but a Sharpie's bold, and I want them to go through every page and circle the products that they would like to start utilizing or what they're using in their home, and how we're going to transfer that purchasing over to establish that ditto profile for their first order. And that's a homework assignment I give them. So I want them to go through, then I can follow up. Can I tell you what's a great exercise for every one of you IBOs? If I could give you a homework assignment, I do it at every nuts and bolts. I go, get your catalogs out and do the same thing. It will blow your mind, especially when we get new catalogs that go, when did we get that product? You know what I'm saying? That I maybe didn't realize that I can now, again, even if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 PV, hey, 2, 3, 4, 5 PV and you have 100 IBOs, is, could be 400 to 500 PV more a month in your organization when you start to be that example. Does that make sense? So I want them doing it. I want them engaged. I want them connecting. Not that the website isn't great. And I know a lot of you, the demographic, your age is to get on the website and do all that, but I still think there's something, the tactile part of going through and looking at that and engaging in that and getting that set up. And then basically what I want them to focus in on is on the WIN product line. The high point products initially is where we want them to go with their orders because they get the highest points, they spend the littlest amount dollar-wise for those, and the wholesale retail profit is high if they're going to go market them. So we start in there, especially if people are on a limited budget, as opposed to go to other categories that don't have the high PV ratio, and they see money's going out, points are not as high, and then they sometimes can get discouraged as new IBO. And our whole purpose as a sponsor is to set somebody up to win and to succeed. I love the recent CD came out by the Danzigs. They talk about points equals cash. Simple, right? If you're using the points, increasing your points, that's going to start to have cash come back into your household. And then we set up a second meeting. And this is when Bob and I sit down and set up their game plan for what exactly they want, the speed they want to go, and how they're going to do it. So Bob will touch base on that. And then at that time, I'm following up with them with the catalogs and getting their ditto established in their business.
Okay, so like Shelley said, I'm normally not there for several reasons. Number one, I interrupt her too much, right? I just get too excited. I say, tell them about this. And she looks at me and kicks me under the table. The table rises about 3 feet, okay? The other reason that I'm not there is that I can do several things with that time. I can take my kids out, have a daddy kid day. I can go out and do a follow-up. I can do another meeting. I can do a board plan. We can duplicate our efforts. I don't need to be there. And I'm not saying you have to do that. That's just the way we operate. She feels very comfortable. Now, I'll never put her in that position with a single man because I'll be in the house. If it's a single, I'll always be in the house. I may not be at the registration, but I'll be in my office a couple, 20, 40, 50 feet away. But if it's a couple or a single gal, I'm never there. We've always duplicated our efforts, and I'm never there. And then she always edifies the fact that I'll call them in 2 to 3 days, and Bob will call you back, and we'll set up a time for us all to get together, whether it's a single or a couple, and we'll establish a game plan. We'll establish a business plan for you that fits your needs. Now, when we get together, typically within a couple, 2, 3 days, I'll call them up. What I'll do is when we set that meeting up, I will print off core PDF, and I'll print off all the people involved. I'll print off a core PDF for them, and I'll also print off a fast track PDF for them. Those are the 2 things I'm going to cover. And what I've done, and again, you check up line before you do this, but what I've done is I've gone through and I've taken every single expense there is to build this business, and I put it on that core piece of paper. So I'll put it next to everything. I'll put down how much all the major functions are, when they are. I've broken it down by month. I'll break down how much Premier membership is, how much standing order is. I break everything down. Now, once I've gone through all of core, I say, all right, we need to develop a plan for you guys in the next 30, 60, 90 days to get your business profitable to where it's paying for all these tools so that within 90 days, we've got you right where you need to be to put this thing together. I don't let the tail wag the dog. I let the dog wag the tail. See, your new guy doesn't know what's going on, guys. You could be in this thing 2 days, you know more than your newest person, okay? So I have to identify, first of all, how much money do they have, and then I built their plan around that. See, a lot of us want to get in right away, and we want everybody to be Crown Ambassador. They might just be a customer, or they might want to build a big business. So we have to cater to them and develop a plan based on what they want, not what you and I want. We have to meet them at their needs, okay? And then we go through and we try and identify how much time it's going to take to put this thing together. Now, first vision Ron talks about is Ruby, 0 to Ruby. We know that in order for you to go Ruby, you're going to have to build this thing 2 to 3 nights a week. In order to do that, we need to lay that out and what that means, how many plans that is, follow-ups, eventually nuts and bolts. So we show them how much time it's going to take. Typically to do that, it's going to be 10 to 12 to 15 hours. I've never seen anybody have to put in more than 15 hours, but it could take that much to go Ruby. So I said, you have that kind of time now to build your business. If they say no, I said, how much time do you have? If they say I have 9 hours, I said, well, it's going to take you probably more to go platinum. And if they don't want to wait that long, I said, well, then you're going to have to change something. But we build that whole entire business plan around their needs, wants, and desires, not ours. And I'm going to tell you why that's important, guys. If you don't identify that up front, you're going to get very frustrated when you get someone in thinking that this is going to be your next leg to get you in the Eagle or double Eagle or platinum, and they haul off and don't do what you expect them to do because you never identified what they wanted in the first place. You tried to put upon them what you wanted for them instead of identifying what they wanted out of this business. You have to identify what they want. Make sense? So we establish that game plan, and we cover core, and then I go through fast track. All right? And I explain to them fast track. So let's just talk about that really briefly. 4 years ago, I believe, is the first time fast track came out. And it's not a guaranteed profit. We hope we get it every year. We've got them convinced not to change it but every 2 years. They used to change it every year, and about the time we figured out how to get these incentives to qualify for these incentives, it'd be expired, and we'd have to confuse the group and change it all over again. Now we've got it for at least 2 years before they even think about making a change. Well, fast track, I think, is ingenious, and I hope they never get rid of it because we're really big believers that if you get someone to fast track, your attrition rate will drop, people are making money, and they're going to stick around. Now, the biggest challenge we saw years ago when we were growing like crazy, we sponsored a ton of people. Matter of fact, I remember seeing a statistic one time from the corporation. We sponsored 12 times more than the nearest multi-level competitor. 12 times more than the nearest multi-level competitor. However, we went from sponsoring to make sure we were doing everything right legally to really focused on retail. So we swung the pendulum 180 degrees the opposite direction, and we quit sponsoring. And our whole business model slowed down. I'm a big believer you have to have a balanced business. You have to have a business balance between sponsoring and retail and personal use. Now, I know that we'll grow worldwide big time by sponsoring, but if people aren't making money, they're going to quit. And you've got to get people making money in the first 30, 60, 90 days. That's imperative. So we want to focus on getting them making money. All right, now, I don't have any sympathy whatsoever when it comes to getting people around the system. Is it a requirement to doing business? No. But it's been my experience, along with Shelley's, that when you plug into a development program like Worldwide's put together, you will grow and learn what you need to learn in order to develop a people business. And I just see people struggling that don't do that. It's not a requirement. Don't misunderstand me. It's not a requirement. So what I've always taught my guys is within 30 days of a major function, if you can't afford to go to the function and get registered, I'd rather have you go to the function first. Because I'm a big believer that when this thing goes from your head to your heart, and when you see the heart of this business, and you see people on stage that are emotional, and they start explaining to you firsthand how this business has changed their life, and it gets in your heart, you will absolutely go out and speak with passion like you can't even comprehend that you never had from just seeing the board plan. I'll never forget this as long as I live. There's a couple that were up in Alaska, and this guy lived in a boxcar for a while. I'll never forget it. He was at Brad and Julie's family reunion, and he got up on stage, scared to death. We have a clear lexicon podium so that we can show off the ladies' dresses, and we had flowers up on stage, beautiful backdrop. This guy hid behind the podium, behind the flowers, the whole time he spoke, so nervous, as a new platinum, so nervous to speak in front of 8,000 people, he couldn't even stand up in front of everybody. And when he was done, there wasn't a dry eye in the place, and he had about a 10-minute standing ovation. I bawled like a 2-year-old. I'm thinking, oh, my word, if this man can go through what he's gone through, live the way he lived, with 2 children and a wife, living in a boxcar, doing some of the things they had to do to go platinum, what in the world is my excuse? And it so endeared me to the power of the system, because it was the system that motivated and pulled this man and helped him with his self-image to get to where he had to be to build this business. And I really believe that if we don't have a system, this is just my personal opinion, if we don't have a system that will empower us like that, coach us, teach us, and develop us, the first 3 or 4 or 5 no's we take, we'll quit. I've seen it happen too many times. We'll quit. And so I'm going to encourage everyone, when we have that meeting, please get around the system. Try never to miss a meeting. All the time, get around the association every chance you get, because anytime I'm around my upline, they always make me feel better about being around them than when I wasn't around them. And I'm a big believer that if I'm around you guys, and you're always empowering and encouraging me, and we do that with one another, that no matter how much negative we see from people that don't understand our model, that won't be near as effective as being around you guys getting fed that positive all the time. And I just think that's huge, guys. That's my personal opinion. You don't have to do it. And so the last thing I want to tell you about that meeting that we do is I explained to them that you can either plug in to 2 meetings a month that I'm doing. I just don't give them carte blanche approval to plug in any one of my board plans, because I want to posture even at my newest downline. Or I said, if you're ready for me to start showing the plan for you, let's book 2 plans in your house now. And I go through that whole analogy I gave you earlier about why you don't cancel, we're in partnership and everything else. And if they're ready to go, which is music to an upline's ears, man, I book a board plan in their house and we start showing plans for them within a week or 2 weeks. I teach them some simple approaches to get people in front of the plan, and we rock and roll. I love what Theron Nelson said. No quality in, no quality out. If you don't teach people how to retail, if you don't teach people how to approach, if you don't teach people how to show the plan, you have to teach them how to show the plan. You can't just give them a BOV and say, show the plan. You got to teach them what to say. You got to teach them how to introduce you in a plan. You got to teach them how to host a house plan. You have to teach people. Well, you go, that takes a lot of time. Yeah, but long term, that pays off for you. Short term, it might seem like a lot of work, but long term, it will pay off, because your organization will duplicate that throughout your entire group. And now you've got hundreds and thousands of people, depending on how big a business you build, that are duplicating that. And that's where you can pass on your kids if they choose to build this. Does that make sense? So, and I know you guys know that. I know you know that. This is for the benefit of the CD here, but I know you know that. But put quality in your businesses, and you will absolutely turn Canada on their ear. Okay?
This audio is protected by copyright. All rights are reserved by Team Global USA Corp. Duplication and diffusion are prohibited. This audio is intended only for Amway IBOs and should not be used to prospect. Purchase is optional. Although the methods and techniques have worked for others, no one can guarantee that they will work for you. It's important to emphasize that success in this business requires hard work and effort. The results represented here could reflect income from sources other than the Amway business, such as earnings from educational materials, other businesses, or investments.